This is the Living in Clarity podcast, and today we have a very special episode. We're going to be interviewing 3 Yeshiva students who I have the privilege of learning with. You have the privilege of teaching. We just wanted to shine a little bit of light on who is learning in Yeshiva and really what's going on here that is so enticing for people to step away from their life and come and learn in Jerusalem. So today, right now, we're starting off with Andre Oziel, who has been here for quite a while. We actually overlapped my first time here in 2015. So Andre, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a privilege to be here.
So how'd you get here? How'd you get information? Tell us your story.
So it's a long story, but I'll try to sum it up as much as I can. I'll just really start from the beginning because it's probably important. I originally was born in France. My father's French, my mother's American, my mother's Jewish. So born Jewish, and my father actually passed away right before I was born.
Wow.
So, my mom was pretty much didn't really quite know what to do with her life. So, but she had a cousin that lived in Hawaii, and her cousin invited, maybe we should just come out. You just had a baby, the love of your life just passed away. So maybe you should, have some time to think things out. Figure something out.
It's a pretty far move to move from France all the way to Hawaii.
How many people did you meet to actually move from France to Hawaii?
Yeah, I don't know.
Anybody?
None. One and only.
Wow, what part of France was it?
In Montpellier. It's in the southern part.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Hawaii. That's
how old were you when you moved?
A year old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I don't remember so much, but I visited a lot. I still have family in France, and. But yeah, growing up in Hawaii was it's an amazing, incredibly beautiful place. I recently went back to visit, and it was just like more beautiful than I can ever remember. Yeah. A lot, growing up in the ocean, surfing, boogie boarding, lots of water sports, lots of outside activity. But on the flip side, not so much Judaism, not so much, as I can say now, real meaning in my life.
Right.
And I eventually went to college. Fast forward a lot.
Right.
While
I'm wondering first, what was meaningful for you while you were growing up? In Hawaii? Just
having fun,
Yeah.
The ideas were my philosophy was just to try to enjoy life.
Catch a wave,
catch the wave, ride it. Maybe bring another person along with you. Bring happiness to other people as you're riding the wave as well. And I think even now that's a similar philosophy as well, but there's a lot more meaning to it, a lot more behind it now.
Wow. All right, so back to college.
So yeah, in college there was my sophomore year I was very depressed.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to San Diego State University.
Okay.
I studied television and film, and I decided I was like, I'm done. I don't want to be here anymore. This is like not as great as I thought it was going to be. All the fun's over. Freshman year's gone. But after my sophomore year, I came to Israel on Birthright, and it was somewhere along the lines of going to Birthright and speaking to one of my friend's fathers, who was actually Jewish as well. He said that I didn't have to have everything figured out in my life. Like you can put a lot of pressure on yourself, and it can cause you just worry about the future constantly. And that's what I was doing. But speaking to him, I decided, okay, I'm just going to take the next step. And that was go back to school and figure out, either continue with film or maybe try something else. I continued with the film. I went back. I took it through the Hillel was the organization that took us to Birthright. So they had a bar mitzvah class that they offered, that they put on for about a year. So I learned different things about Judaism, some of the customs, and
wow.
I started connecting a little bit. I learned the alphabet for the first time. And then a few months later, I read from the Torah for the first time, and for me, I don't know, it wasn't such a big thing at that point, but it was sort of the start of my journey. Then there was another Orthodox rabbi who did kiruv on campus. His name was Rabbi Samowitz, and he oftentimes asked me if I wanted to meet, and blew him off many times. But finally, I said yeah.
Pulled the Heisman, right?
Right. And finally I met, and I ended up really liking talking to him. He asked me very interesting questions about life, made me think a lot, and he was always encouraging me to come back to Israel. But I went. I didn't have so much real desire to come back. So, but I'd go sometimes to his house, go for Shabbat, dinner, enjoy a nice meal, and then fast forward a few years, I graduated from college, and I decided, like everybody who graduates from college, that I want to pursue surfing as a profession.
Oh, yeah, great.
So, I mean, I had been
surfing or poker, those are your two choices, right?
Right. So I started. I had surfed my whole life growing up in Hawaii and competed in the club sports on campus and did pretty good. But I wanted to use my degree of television and film to make a documentary about pursuing my dreams. Wow. And the idea that people say, you have a dream, anybody can do anything they want, they just need to put their minds to it. And I wanted to put it to the test,
Sure.
So I started on my journey and doing much bigger major competitions, not doing very well in really any of them. And then about a year and a half in, I decided to go to Europe to compete in a series of contests with a friend of mine. And a philanthropist, Richard Horowitz, he asked me that, since you're going to be in Europe, I was put in touch with him through Rabbi Samowitz. And he said, why don't you come to Aish? If you're right there, it's a really short flight. And I had a window of time where I wasn't going to be doing the contest, so I decided I would come.
Wow.
So
okay.
I came for a month. And I was very much blown away by the things that I was learning. I felt like things that I wanted to learn like my whole life, and I was like learning them all day, every day, all day long. And I, of course, was put in touch with Rabbi Yontov Glazer.
That makes sense.
The surfing rabbi.
He is a professional surfer.
Right.
Was.
And we connected. And I just almost was like, okay, maybe I'm just going to stay in Israel, Maybe I'm really just going to take this like full on and keep going with it. It was a big decision to make, but I decided to continue surfing and continued on my tour. Again, really not going for the next basically 4 years. I continued with not so much success. Again, very much living in the moment and, getting involved with, too much, a little bit substance abuse and partying, and that definitely took away my motivation and was for sure a big reason why I was never able to be successful in surfing. And after I just finally decided that I didn't want to continue anymore, I thought maybe it'd be time to really like try out something else, something different in my life. It's actually a friend of mine. It's a very influential story. He told me that from this. He was having a conversation with this woman who was an atheist, and she said that he was he was a Christian. He believed in God, and she was like, "How can you believe in any of this stuff? It doesn't make any sense." And he was getting a little bit upset. But he said to her, has what you've been doing in your life has been working in your life? And she sort of thought about it, and she just started burst into tears crying.
Whoa. Because
as much as she could think about it, intellectually, like it doesn't make sense, inside it wasn't working.
No.
And I looked at, and it really, I felt it was basically Hashem, like going through my friend, asking me, has what I've been doing in my life hasn't been working?
Wow.
And I really felt it hadn't. And so I started, going to the synagogue in Maui. I was living back in Maui at that time. And I started going to the synagogue more, a little bit more Shabbos observance, kashrus. And then Richard Horowitz again contacted me and asked me if I wanted to go back to Israel and learn some more. So I decided I would come.
How old were you at that time?
So I was 27 at that time.
Okay.
And came for 3 months. 3 months turned into 8 months, as most people. And then I left, and I wasn't quite sure again what to do, but went back to Richard Horowitz again, and he said, if you were going to go surfing, where would you go? So I said, go to Indonesia. It's the best waves. Yeah. I said, he said, what do you want to do now? I said, I want to live a religious life, and I want to get married. So he says, well, where do you think the best girls are? And I said, Probably in Israel.
Yeah.
Instead of, I think we know what you need to do now.
Yeah. He just helped you think for yourself. Though.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I came back and learned a little bit more, and then eventually started dating. I met my wife, Baruch Hashem, and we've had a few children after that.
Oh, wow.
And now we're living in Har Nof.
And you still surf?
Still surfing as when I can.
Yeah. In Tel Aviv?
Usually in Ashdod, sometimes Tel Aviv.
Okay.
All along the coast, there's pretty good waves here.
Right. Do you teach?
Yeah. I mean, do I teach surfing? Do I teach? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in Hawaii, I did as well. And usually there's guys around the Yeshiva if anybody wants to learn. So.
I have a family member that wants to learn how to surf.
Okay, we can set it up.
And what's next? What's next for you right now?
So right now I'm in the Smicha program, and which is the rabbinical program to become a rabbi. And but really, it's really just to focus on learning and trying to do the will of Hashem. And I'd like to eventually, afterwards, I get my smicha to be an influence here to help some of the younger guys and bring them along in their path.
Amazing.
Do you have a final message you'd like to tell our viewers who maybe considering yeshiva or maybe don't really fully understand what happens here? Just a message.
I really just think that one of the keys for me was that is appreciation. And I think for Judaism, that's a huge thing, and gratitude, and to realize how much we have, and being connected with Hashem and all the messages that Hashem gives is a lot of it. A lot of that is focused on this appreciation and realizing that it all comes from Him and He all gave it to us just to enjoy, and to take that, it can really uplift our lives a lot.
Wow,
so
what
good.
a story! From France to Maui and now Jerusalem. Wow, you're quite an inspiration.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you and to hear more of that story.
Thank you so much for having me.
All
and
right.
One last thing, but so like I said, I was working on a documentary, and still working on it. It's taken a long time in the making, but it's getting close to finishing. And so just anybody who's listening, there should be a film coming out.
What's it called?
It's called Going Pro, or it could be Ripples of Bliss. Still.
Cool.
They're both good names, though.
We need to have you again, and we'll talk more about what that's going to look like when it's ready to come out.
Once after it's out, we want to see it, and then we'll have you back on.
Yeah.
Be great.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we have someone
So
else coming up.
we have someone else coming. That was so interesting.
Who
it's
goes
amazing to hear
from
the
France
stories.
to Maui? I think that's crazy.
Right?
And now they're living in Jerusalem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just one of the inspiring stories of the people who we get to be around.
I know.
You work here, I get to be a student here,
Yep.
and just constant inspiration.
Yeah, who do we have next?
Really excited to have Daniel Moyle on our episode today. Daniel, you're from Miami. Tell us a little bit about what it was like to grow up there and your background.
Wow, well, thank you for having me on the show, Brandon and Coach. It's interesting having, an interview from my teacher and fellow student here at Aish. Wow, growing up in Miami, I don't know where to get started. I mean, if you're familiar with Miami in the movies, it's a beach town, it's a beach city, and we're known for, the beautiful landscape, the Caribbean feel, and, the parties and lots of Jewish communities.
Yeah.
You're either Jewish or Latino or retired in Miami. So
Which one were you part of?
a mixture of the retired Jewish and Latinos.
So how did you grow up Jewishly?
I grew up secular.
Right.
We had a Christmas tree.
Really? Your parents,
In the house.
both your parents Jewish?
No, my dad is Jewish. My mother is Christian.
Uh-huh.
I can get into the background a little more in depth, but we had a Christmas tree and a menorah. We would light the menorah for Hanukkah.
Yeah.
And I'd get some presents here and there, but I'd get the majority of the presents on Christmas.
Yeah.
But growing up, I didn't go to more than a few services.
Right.
But luckily, I was able to grow up around many Jewish friends of mine.
Yes.
In schools, elementary school, middle school, high school, even preschool. I had lots of Jewish friends. my best friends have mainly all been Jewish, but it's been a mix in Miami. Yeah.
So how did you start your Jewish journey? How did you end up at Aish?
Wow. Well, I would say it started with birth, besides Hashem taking me to Aish.
Yeah.
I would say I've always had the Jewish influence growing up, So my father's father is Moroccan. He served in the IDF.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother on my father's side is Polish. Her family escaped the Nazis from Denmark to Sweden.
Uh-huh.
And they went back to Denmark. That's a story I'm sure you're familiar with where they had to get on boats in the middle of the night and cross a lake.
Yeah.
Wow.
When the Nazis had like a little window when they were not paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then her family before that, the generation before that, actually escaped the Cossacks who ran through that Russian and Polish village. And then on my mother's side, my mom's mom is Japanese. So she was actually rescued from Hiroshima before it was nuked.
Oh, wow.
By my grandfather, who's Irish American.
Wow.
He was in the U.S. Army.
You need to write a book.
I'm working on one actually.
Yeah,
I was
good.
inspired by reading Score. Such a great book.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I love your books. I love
Yeah.
your classes. That's why you always see me at the Beer Bazaar events.
Oh, good. Speaking of,
Yeah, we for our audience, in case you're not familiar yet, if you're in Israel, we do seminars.
yeah, Beer Bazaar in Jerusalem, and right now we're starting also at
In Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv.
Yeah. Just message us and
Yeah.
find out when the next one is.
You can also find that out on CoachRatner.com.
Right?
Oh, I will
Squeezing
be
that
there.
in there.
Yeah,
Thanks for
yeah.
setting it up.
That's
teed
your
it up
commercial for
us.
the day. Now back to Dan Will.
Okay, yeah, I will be there at all those events. Speaking of Tel Aviv, honestly, like, I love Tel Aviv. I love Jerusalem. I love all of Israel. I came to Tel Aviv the first time in, I think it was 2018.
Yeah.
I came with my family. We just stayed in Tel Aviv for, a week or two, and I was partying a lot. I was going to Shalvata,
Yeah.
Lighthouse, all those spots, and my cousin, he lives over here, so he was deep involved in partying, so I just went.
Yeah.
I went all out then. But going back to, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
My grandfather on my mom's side, he's Irish American. He was an orphan, but he was in the U.S. Army, and he rescued my grandmother from Hiroshima before it was nuked.
Yeah.
Brought her back to the States, where my mom was raised in Lutheran in Bahamas, and they moved to Cocoa Beach. But my mom met my father in Texas. My father was a foreign exchange student in Seattle, and then he went to Texas when he was around 18 to become an airline pilot. My mom is a flight attendant, so
That's
they
funny.
met in flight school in Texas.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, and then they lived in Puerto Rico for like 7 years. I was conceived in Puerto Rico, and then I was born in Cape Canaveral by the space station.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, what got you from Miami and partying and Tel Aviv partying to in a yeshiva?
Wow.
That's quite a big transition here it goes. So we want to hear this. What
What
got
were you doing before, and where did that spark initiate?
Okay, like I said, it started in schooling. Just my best friends were Jewish, so I always had that influence. Without even knowing it, it was subconscious.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, these are my friends, my family. Everyone's Jewish around me, so I'm like, okay, like it makes sense.
Yeah.
So in high school, I would say this is where things started taking a turn. In high school, I was a freshman, hanging out with the seniors, the cool kids. They had the cars. They were invited to the parties.
Sure.
They were older than me. So I was running around with a friend, Johan and Maytar, right? So in high school, they're taking me to all these parties, right? In the middle of high school, Maytar and Johan had graduated.
Yeah.
Maytar, he disappeared, right?
Yeah.
He went to the IDF. We didn't hear from him for years. We find out he's married, has 3 kids, and is fully religious Orthodox here living in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he kind
What a
of just
difference.
disappeared, yeah. And then my friend Johan, he was also like part of the crew, right? So I go through high school, then I went to college for a couple of years. I'm working on marketing business, entrepreneurship, partying a lot, living the Miami lifestyle, whatever you could think of, you name it. And then I moved to New York. This is like kind of out of the blue. I moved to New York. I go to film school, and in New York I'm recording music and whatnot. I decided to come back after like a year and a half. This is during COVID around. I come back right before COVID is like bad, like when it's just starting. And I have a rap competition. It's a worldwide rap competition where I'm supposed to perform that week, like the week I got back from Miami. I get a call from Johan. I haven't talked to him in 3 years, right? He says, "Hey, Daniel, I'm in Miami. I'm looking for a place to stay. Are you here?" I'm like, "Johan, like, I'm so happy to hear from you. I don't know where you went. I don't know what happened to Maytar. He's married, religious, has 3 kids. Like, of course you can come stay with me, So he comes over at the front door. Like, I open the door. I see him. He's wearing a white shirt, tzitzis, black pants, black hat. And I'm like, "Johan, what happened to you?" And he goes, "Daniel, you have no idea what's going on in this world. You are not safe." I'm like, "Johan, what are you talking about? Life is good. I'm fine. Like, just stay with me for a little bit. Like, let's get you back to normal." So the next day, I have a rap competition. I bring him with me. He's wearing his white shirt, tzitzis, black pants, black hat. And he films me doing a performance of the song Joker. And then it's at Coast to Coast Music Conference, right? And then I won 3rd place in a world championship. And
he was there. That's huge.
So anyways, after about a week of staying with me, Johan, he's like, "Okay, I can't stay in Miami. It's not good enough for me right now. I need to go to Brooklyn, Yeshiva, maybe get back to Israel." So that's kind of the last I heard from him, and it's been over 2 years since then.
Okay.
So then at that time, obviously it's sitting with me, in my subconscious that, Johan just became religious. Maytar became religious. He's married. He has kids. Johan's telling me there's so much wrong with the way that I'm living, and there's so much wrong with, the world as we know it. And I'm just, that just went right over my head. He was really getting me to strive for truth. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to make me think differently.
Right.
So I just went right back to life as we know it. I was driving Uber, going to parties, whatnot, and I ran into a friend from high school that we kind of reconnected. And I went to his house to hang out. He had a whole collection of Zohar books right in front of us in the living room table. And I know you might be thinking, okay, where's this leading? But yes, he gave me a Kabbalah book. He recommended me a Kabbalah book called The Power of Kabbalah, The Principles of Kabbalah. I read them within a week. That was the first time I ever read a book in a week. And I was just so amazed with what I read. I was like, this is amazing. This is beautiful. And, I was just continuing my life, the partying and whatnot as I knew it for what it was. And, one day it just hit me like a freight truck. Like it just hit me that I was living my life like so wrong in comparison to the way that I could have been living it. There was just things that I felt I was doing that were holding me back. And, it might sound like I'm being hard on myself, but like there were a lot of things that I had to, leave behind or sacrifice, like bad habits that were holding me back from my full, potential. And, I would say it's triumph, being able to quit quit some of the drugs I was doing and quit, some of the bad habits I was doing, and, just disassociating from those things. And then, one Friday night, after this realization, a month later or so, a friend of mine from middle school, he invites me to a comedy club on a Friday night. I went with him. We had a good laugh. The next week, I invited him to shul on Friday night, just out of nowhere.
Wow.
And he's like, "Wow, this was nice. How about next Friday?" He had to top me, of course. He's like, "How about we go have dinner at my rabbi's house? Next Friday night we have Shabbat dinner." And the rabbi, he's like, "Do you want me to take you on as a student?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." So he signed me Chumash with Rashi every day in the morning. And then in addition to that, I was on YouTube watching Rabbi Yom Tov videos,
Yom Tov Glazer.
Yom Tov Glazer used to teach here at Aish, and
Great.
yeah, and lots of other rabbis. Rabbi Manis Friedman, I watched a lot of him on YouTube as well, and they just brought me so much closer to Judaism. And then fast forward like 10 months from there, I went on Birthright, which was last summer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was the most religious on the trip.
Yeah.
And that was a shock for me because I grew up not religious at all. And I was like, what happened to me?
Yeah.
I was like, you know, and I started rapping tefillin, eating kosher. Keeping Shabbos was trouble for me at first, but I was able to accomplish that like a few months later. But originally I was driving to people's homes for Shabbos, you know, and flipping. I flipped the switch, you know, a couple times. And but yeah, then I just started getting more involved with the community and going to Jewish adult groups, you know, young guys aiming to become better and study Torah. And I actually met a couple of the guys who have been to Aish before. And I asked for recommendations. I was like, look, I'm looking into going to Yeshiva. What's the best Yeshiva I can go to? They said, oh, go to Aish in Jerusalem. That's the best place you can go. And now I'm here, you know, I've been here for 3 months. So.
And how long you plan to stay here?
At least until February, but with the way Hashem's just blessing my life right now, I have no idea when I'll leave.
I don't want you to go. It's so much fun to have you around.
I like having you as a student. I don't want you to leave either.
Oh, thank you
I have
so much.
to teach you.
Now, one of the cool things, I got to hear you rap one time. You are such an incredible improver. I was wondering if there's something you could do for us right now on the show, just for our listeners.
Of course there is. Okay.
And how do they find you? Another way.
Also, how do they follow? Yeah.
How do they find your stuff?
So I'm on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music under Daniel Moyal.
How do you spell Moyal?
Mouyal.
Okay.
And I just dropped a mixtape. It's called Call You from Paris.
Okay.
It's a full-length mixtape. I'm working on the book, like I told you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to go get that right away. Yeah. Okay, you want to hear?
Yes, of course.
Okay. I ask God to help me be content. Yeah. In any given circumstance. And every obstacle I circumvent. As long as I'm content. I ask God to help me be content in any given circumstance, and every obstacle I'll circumvent, as long as it's what's meant for me at the time, because I trust in Hashem that He's got a plan, and I get to stand in His kingdom with great love and wisdom. This is the instance where I started winning and grinning, because this is the feeling of love when I trust in the one and the work is not done. I'll never stop learning. I'm working and earning, get what I'm deserving, nothing more, nothing less. This is the best, got clean from a mess, and I aim to just be me at my best. Traveling from east to the west to see that I'm just like the rest. And when I say I'm the best, I'm just me at my best.
Nice.
Love it.
Nice.
That was so good.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank
Amazing.
you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.
Such a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Living in Clarity podcast.
If you enjoy what you just heard, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment with any suggestions for future episodes.
We'll see you next time.